Welcome to Ability Assistance. My name is Phyllis Jones, Chair of the North Andover Commission on Ability Assistance.
And my name is Stacey Leibowitz. I am the Secretary of the North Andover Commission on Ability Assistance.
This month is a special episode. We are pleased to welcome Kelly Camm, Development Director from 4PawsForAbility, and we are celebrating our graduating seniors on our crew. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming. Now, first let's explain. You're remote for us. Where are you located?
We are based in Xenia, Ohio.
But you serve people in Massachusetts.
Absolutely, and all of North America.
Isn't technology wonderful?
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So tell us a little bit about the history of 4PawsForAbility.
Absolutely. We are celebrating our 24th year of operation as a service dog agency, and we have placed over 1,600 service dogs for people with disabilities, primarily children, but we also serve veterans and also a small adult population.
Now, children, veterans, and a small adult population. Okay. There are different, let's start with the basics. What is a service dog?
A service dog is a dog that is trained to do specific tasks to mitigate a disability. So for example, we serve kids with autism that some of them are runners. And so what that means is they do a fight or flight response, and the dog is trained to do search and rescue. So that's a life-saving task.
Yes.
Of course, we also do seizure alert. The dogs are trained to respond to the seizure and assist after the seizure. Again, a task, life-saving. But we also do mobility dogs that pick up dropped items, open and close doors, help with a manual wheelchair or balance support. All the dogs that we train are doing tasks to help someone with a disability.
So for people who may not understand, a service dog has gone beyond helping somebody who is blind or deaf or only needs assistance with mobility issues.
Yes, I mean, there are so many different types of service dogs out there. And, when I first joined 4Paws on the Board of Trustees back in 2006, I had no idea that there was anything but guide dogs, for people that are blind. But we've actually developed some of those dogs to help people. And we just really think that, there's even more opportunities out there. We've added Alzheimer's assistance to our program in the last few years, just because we're seeing a need in the disability community for a dog that can track that client that might take, I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to go to the top of the street, and then they get lost and can't find their way back. So there's just so much that dogs can be trained to do to really help people with disabilities. So it's a really wide category.
Is it?
I'm sorry. So I was going to ask, we talk about service dogs, which obviously there is an expansion on the capacity for what they do, obviously beyond being a seeing eye dog and just some of the basics, which is phenomenal. But then there are other kinds of not service dogs, but you have emotional companion dogs. Can you break down the difference between these kinds of services? Because I think for the public there is confusion at times, and maybe somebody's going to go and pet a dog when they really shouldn't, or certain dogs that are allowed in certain places based on what their category is.
Absolutely, yes. So there are service dogs, there's therapy dogs, and there's emotional support animals. So emotional support animals do not have all public access, and neither do therapy dogs. Service dogs do. So service dogs, if you think about it, they're a durable medical good, and you just like a wheelchair. And so you wouldn't say to somebody, oh, I'm sorry, you can't come into this building or this restaurant or this school with your wheelchair. You'll have to leave that outside. Same thing with the service dog. They have all public access because they are actually a durable medical good helping that person with their disability.
Right.
They need that dog. A therapy dog is a wonderful family pet of someone that they've then been able to get trained to go into certain places like hospitals or nursing homes or libraries for kids to read. And then emotional support animals are also people's pet dogs that they do have trained for emotional support, obviously, as the name implies. And they do have some access. I know, I think this is changing, but they were allowed on airlines, but I think a lot of the airlines are realizing, people were bringing in some animals that really weren't conducive
Yes.
to being on an airplane, a cat,
The
a
law-
chicken, a
yeah.
snake.
A peacock.
The law
things
used to be the dog
Yes.
or a small pony. I never understood that one.
Well, there are guide dog organizations that are training miniature ponies, horses, because they live a long time. Their average life is 30 years versus, a dog, maybe average life 10 to 12. And so we aren't going that route. We're going to
Right.
stick with dogs. But yeah, that is, there's only two animals recognized as service animals, and that is a dog and a miniature horse.
Now, let's try to dispel a little bit of how the ADA has extended service dogs. There used to be emotional support dogs, which were brought in specifically for our brothers and sisters in arms who came back who had PTSD, for example. And that's how they put the title on those dogs so that people could have them in the VA homes, for example. But that's been expanded now under the ADA, hasn't it?
Yes, we serve a lot of veterans with PTSD as well as other challenges, hearing impairments, mobility impairments, seizure disorders. So absolutely, we're really proud to be able to serve our veterans with task-trained service dogs so that they can take their dogs everywhere that they would go and just really help with their transition back into the civilian world and just really have the same rights and privileges that we all have that we take for granted.
Most definitely. Now, let's focus on soldiers for a moment, or somebody else who has a seizure disorder or when the emotions come into play. Let's focus on it that way. Maybe there's sweating involved, maybe there's heavy breathing involved. How are you going about to train a dog regarding that if the person isn't there every moment of the time you're training the animal?
Yeah, we utilize scent to help the dog notice a change in a PTSD, in diabetic alert, in seizure alert. And so we have these articles that we ask the client to send to us so that we can train the dog before they come to class and learn how to work with the dog. And so that dog, you'll see them, their nose in the air, and they'll, when they're with that person and starting to recognize, okay, there's something going on. I was trained to alert to that smell. And so that's what they do really when they're here for the 9-day training class, is to practice those things over and over until at the end it's like, okay, I feel really prepared that this dog is going to alert to my child's seizure or my high-low blood sugar or my PTSD or night terror alerts. Yeah.
So what is the process then? I mean, obviously, you have that down pat as far as training the dog. What is the process to, I guess, apply and to be matched with a dog to provide that service?
Yeah, so people are welcome to go to our website, which I know you'll post later, but it's 4PawsForAbility.org.
And that's 4 with the number 4.
Yes, the number 4 at the beginning, and then the next 4 is FOR. But yes, absolutely. There it is on the screen. Thank you. But yeah, go onto our website, apply. You will need a doctor's prescription noting what the disability is, letters of reference from people outside of your family that can, vet you that yes, you have the financial means, the emotional, means, physical means to take care of a dog. And then they go through an interview process with our client services coordinator. They get approved, and then they're given all sorts of training. We use a free tool called Canvas where they'll understand exactly, what they want the dog to do, sign a contract, and then they start, at least our children and our adults start a fee-for-service. So we are a nonprofit organization, 501c3, but we are a fee-for-service nonprofit. So our families will come up with some of the funding, usually fundraising, and we have our client services coordinator that will help them through that process if they need it. We have a whole course designed for that, but she's always there, phone, email, to get them to their fee-for-service, and then they get placed into a class. It actually cost 4Paws between $40,000 and $60,000 to place a dog, but the family's fee-for-service is just $17,000. Now for our veterans, we feel that they've already paid the price to keep all of us free. And so we actually will find private funding for our veterans. And we place really just a handful or two of veterans a year. But where we really have the most applications are with our kids, because there's just a huge gap in the service dog industry in helping kids.
Now, service dogs are expensive, no matter how you put it, because they're specialty animals. My first question is, where they are durable or considered durable equipment, have the insurance companies started to pick up on this at all for picking up on some of the cost?
No, insurance companies, no. But there are occasions in certain states, and Massachusetts is not one, but where they can work with their Department of Developmental Disabilities and their county and try to get some of the funding that way. It's pretty rare, because what they need to happen a lot of times is for that dog to be trained and placed within a year with that client. And unfortunately, because we have so much need and demand for our services, we can't train a dog that quickly for a child. We have, 120 dogs being trained this year, 120 being trained in 2023, and are already booking for 2024. So if a client did come to us and say, hey, I have been able to find some funding from this, county agency, we would not generally be able to help unless they were able to say, okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll pay you now. If the dog isn't placed till 2024, that's great. But most of them need to see that return on investment within a year. Similar to funding a wheelchair, you would expect that wheelchair would be delivered within a year.
Well, it sounds like something that maybe medical insurance providers and governments, state governments, might need to take a step into, because we're in a healthcare crisis.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a mental health care, cognitive health care crisis right now. And I've seen with my son, we have a psychiatric service animal for my son. And we started the training with, now he was a stray, and I understand there are strays that can go through this and there are strays who can't. But we started with him, we sent audio down to where he was being kept until we were able to get him up from Texas, to the point of when he came off of that van and he heard my son's voice, he went straight for my son and cuddled up to my son on the way home, because he already knew my son's voice. And then we had him trained up here.
Yep.
That's wonderful. I love hearing that. Yeah, we actually have our families send in videos of the different behaviors and the home environment and things. So absolutely, they're just they're just amazing what they can be taught, and just the love and support that they can give too. It's life changing, and in some cases really life saving.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
I mean, I think just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the departments of developmental disabilities, I think the financial aspect where, and it's unfortunate Massachusetts is not in the position currently to do anything, but I think just nationwide, I mean, people function on a fiscal year, and I work in disability services, so what I'm seeing from that or gleaning from it is the fact that if it's not done within that fiscal year, it can't happen.
Yes.
And that's something that I think has to be examined moving forward, because as Phyllis was saying, as a durable medical good, that other things, you have a prescription for this, a prescription.
Exactly.
There should be a way to cover it, and even if it takes some time, how do we, is there something legislation-wise or in some other way, through health insurance companies to look at that? So that's something, definitely, I think, an ongoing discussion, because the cost can be prohibitive for so many people, even at that 17,000 mark.
Exactly.
Well, thankfully, what we tell our families is you don't have to have that 17,000 sitting around in a bank account.
Great.
Very few of us do, especially if you have a child with disabilities.
Yes.
But we really, what we recommend that they do is really just do crowdfunding, sourcing, peer-to-peer. Get their friends and family involved. And we've had families fundraise 17,000 in 4 hours. But other families,
that's incredible.
It is incredible.
Really
it is, and they are blown away. So really, that's what's so great about us being able to serve all over North America, because there could be a client in Massachusetts in your area that just says, hey, I'm raising money for my child's service dog. Here's the link. Would love to have your support. And boom, people start to say, oh my gosh, that's a child in my area. I would love to help that child. Or, oh my gosh, my niece has seizures. I would love to support this child that has seizures. Or, oh, I have diabetes. I would love to be able to help this child with type 1 diabetes, get the tools that they need. And so thankfully we do, have families have support in their communities. And a lot of times they're really blown away by that. And so that's what we really tell our families. You don't have to have that 17. Don't worry about that. But reach out if you're not worried about reaching out. Let's get you some media attention,
Right.
Yes.
And once, people see, oh my gosh, I can help someone right here in my community. So there's just a lot of people that are willing to do that.
Now, where do you get the dogs from? Because people have said you need purebreds, you need certain types of dogs. You can, in our case, we were able to train a very smart stray dog that we were able to adopt. Where do you get your dogs?
Yeah, great question. So when we first started 24 years ago, we had very few applications, 5 applications one year, the next year 13. We were able to use dogs from shelters or rescue groups. We had only a 10% success rate, but at least, we were able to do that. And we had some wonderful service dogs, some mutts, they were great. But about 2011, we were featured in the New York Times, and then just the roof fell off. We just got so many more applications and a lot more demand, and we realized we would not be able to keep up with demand by continuing to go and get dogs from shelters or rescues. So we have our own breeding program, and even with our breeding program, we have a 30 to 40% success rate. So it's better than what it was with our rescues and shelter dogs, but there's still not every dog makes it, and that's part of the cost. We don't know when a dog is born if he or she is going to become a good service dog. It's just like when a child's born, you don't know what their career is going to be. They have to grow and learn and develop and experience life, and then say, oh, I think this is the career.
Oh, come on. Every parent knows my kid's going to become a doctor or a lawyer.
Right. And then they surprise you. Oh,
Exactly.
teaching, or a musician, or And all we want them to do is to be happy ultimately.
Of course.
Yes.
You know, you're
of
not going to
course.
force your child to do something that they don't want to do. Same with our dogs. If they've told us like, "Ooh, I'm kind of nervous in this environment," or "Oh, I kind of would rather just be a couch potato and instead of doing this retrieval work," then they become what we call fabulous flunkies or career changers, and they become fabulous, family pets for people. Some of our adopters will then get them trained as therapy dogs so that they can go and help people in that way. But yeah, that's yeah, yeah. Every dog has a purpose.
Now, it's easy for people to tell if the dog is there for somebody who is blind, who is deaf, who needs mobility impairment because of the type of vest that those dogs typically use.
Right.
What about, you've got a child with autism. A child with autism doesn't necessarily need the type of vest. And in my reading, not every state even requires a dog to wear a service vest. What would you recommend, however, so that people can understand better regarding a service dog?
Absolutely. I mean, it is not required to have a vest on, but we do encourage our families to do that, just so that people don't stop them and say, "I'm sorry, you can't bring this dog in here."
Right.
Oh, well, that's a service dog. Well, and then, asking questions like, "Well, your child doesn't look disabled," just comments like that are just really not appropriate and very stressful. So we just recommend that, unless it's wicked hot outside or something and the dog's sweating with the vest on, to have that, so that it can really just, people can just go, "Okay, that's a service dog, let them on through." And the families don't have to explain every single time, why they have this dog. So that's what we recommend.
Believe it or not, my dentist, when we went to first bring the service dog in with our son, he was getting a cleaning.
Yeah.
I tell people as a courtesy, just so you're aware,
Right.
we have a service dog with us. We called to check in, middle of COVID, called just so you're aware, and I got the response of, "We're sorry, we don't allow pets in here."
Mm.
And I'm like,
But it's not a pet.
it's not a pet, and you get a mother who does this and is an attorney who's done disability law, the wrong person to pick a fight with. And I said, "Well, I guess your office doesn't comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act." And they said, "Well, let me call you right back." And I guess they got on the phone with the dentist, and he's like, "Yeah, no, you let that animal in." And we put a vest on Bobo. Bobo's our dog. We put a vest on Bobo in the hopes that people will understand that he's not just our pet walking around with us, that we can't leave home in a crate or at the house.
He has a job.
Exactly.
Bottom line.
And dental appointments are very stressful just for neurotypical individuals.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's why they have the IV sedation for some of these procedures for people. But we have just seen miracles happen with our dogs laying on the child's body in the chair as
Oh,
they're
wow.
Yeah,
you
I've
know,
seen that.
I don't
getting
know
worked
that
on.
I don't know that my
and-
son could handle Bobo lying on his chest.
I think it would work for
Yeah.
me though. I don't care for the dentist.
So yeah, I think that, and I think a lot of the dentists and the dental techs are, very like, "Oh my goodness, thankfully this is going to go so much more smoothly because the child has that comfort and has that dog, distracting them from what's happening, licking them or kissing them or putting deep pressure."
Hmm.
So yeah, I definitely am glad to hear that your dentist, realized how important the role of that service dog is.
And I think that goes back to why we're having today's show. People don't understand the difference between a service dog, an emotional support animal, and just an animal who just happens to lick you a lot at home, and a therapy dog. And people just automatically say, "Well, it's my emotional support animal, so therefore I can bring the dog everywhere."
Right.
And they don't understand the concept that the dog still needs to be trained to do something. Now, is there any definition of what something is? Does it have to fall under a specific something, or does that go based upon the doctor's prescription?
Yeah, just some kind of a task. So even for us, some of our kids with autism that aren't runners, they might just need a tethering in public because the child doesn't necessarily run off, but they try to wander a little bit. So that could be a task, or behavior disruption. I mean, that covers a wide range of tasks. So they're doing something to get that child or even a veteran back to where, the present. And so it could be a nuzzle or touch or a lap or over. And so that's a task to help them stay on track and be in the present moment and not get distracted by a meltdown or something, a noise that's, startles them. So yeah, we'll do a lot of, all of our dogs are trained to do behavior disruption, but yeah, just it has to be some kind of a task.
Makes sense.
Yes, and there are different types of dogs that work better with, there are certain dogs that work better as guard dogs. I think of German Shepherds, for example. What are the types of dogs, are the best types of dogs that fall into the ability to do these types of tasks?
Yeah, well, really for us, it's the family-friendly dogs, the golden retrievers. We mix also a golden retriever with a Labrador retriever. We call them golden labs. For people with documented dog allergies, we'll do a golden doodle, or we'll do a standard poodle because they have hair, not fur. And people with dog allergies respond much better to those. And then we'll do for a breed, we'll combine a Newfoundland with a golden lab. So we call it a Newfoundland golden lab mix. And then we'll also, for someone that might have a hearing impairment or seizure disorder, or I'm trying to think diabetic alert. We might do, if they want a smaller dog, we'll do a Papillon, which is a toy breed. So I think we might be the only agency doing that small breed. Most service dogs you'll see in public are the larger dogs because they need usually to help with the mobility or balance or do the tracking. But yeah, we just are always, again, looking at, how can we best serve our clients? And we did get that request for a smaller dog. And so we've made the Papillon work with certain disabilities.
That's fantastic to know, and to also understand that we're not just talking about purebred animals.
Right.
We're talking about animals based upon different disabilities to help different people.
Absolutely.
Based upon the dog's own
history, ability,
way of
size.
being. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I'm so grateful that you were talking about our veterans. You see a lot of veterans organizations that will raise money to help veterans, and then they're saying, we're getting an emotional support animal for a veteran, and I happened to be at a home show, and I saw one of these nonprofit organizations, and I said, well, what are you getting the dog to do? And they said, well, the veteran who has PTSD, and I was like, no, are you training that dog to do something? And they said, well, typically to behavioral therapy to try to distract whatever the dog can do to distract.
Redirect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that would be more like a service dog.
That is a service dog.
And then that's where the confusion comes in for people, is understanding even the dog they might be getting.
Exactly.
So that's a valuable service that you're providing to make sure that not just the people who are served, but just the general public hopefully understands the difference.
Now, if you see a service dog, what are the do's and don'ts?
Yes.
Yes, very important.
So while our dogs are actually in training, we do encourage people to ask, hey, may I pet the dog? Because for us, our agency, we just feel that It gives them more socialization experiences, and they get to meet all different types of people, little kids, seniors. But once that the dog is placed as a service dog with our clients, we let the clients decide what they want to do. Some of our families that have kids with autism, they actually will want people to come up and engage with their child and ask their child, hey, tell me about your dog. What's your dog's name? And that really helps the child stay in the moment and kind of get out of their shell and talk about their dog, or show that the dog can do a high five or a knuckle or something. But most of our dogs that are placed with medical alert dogs, so our diabetic alert or seizure alert, and in many of those cases, our families will put a please ask to pet patch on the vest, and then they'll just say, I'm sorry, my dog is working right now, because they don't want that dog to miss and be distracted and miss that high low blood sugar or smell that seizure coming on. So we just really let our families decide. But the general rule really is, if it's a seeing eye dog, never approach or say or do anything, because that's that person's eyes. I mean, can you imagine if that dog was distracted and the person fell, into the street? But for other people, that see service dogs, I mean, it's if you think, I don't see a patch, maybe ask. But really, you can kind of tell by the body language of the families, if they're open to it. But yeah, never just rush up and say, oh, I know I shouldn't pet the dog, but I'm going to, because that's just not fair. I mean, that's like somebody touching you without your permission.
Exactly.
And people need to realize that.
And I think that's just good practice with any dog, regardless, not just to go up and make an assumption as much as you'd like to pet the dog. So it's also a safety thing just across the board.
Most definitely. Now, I bring a dog into a store. We'll just leave it as a store or a restaurant. What can I, as the person on the flip side, the person who's having their business have a service animal come in, what can I say or not say with that dog coming in? I'm thinking maybe more like a restaurant where people might get concerned about
because of
fur.
food and
sanitary conditions.
Yeah, there's two questions. The first is that a service dog? And if the answer is yes, and then what is the dog trained to do? And those are the two things that people can ask. And so you can be, as a parent of that child, or as someone that has a service dog, that second question, what's the dog trained to do? You could just say PTSD alert or behavior disruption or mobility support. I mean, you don't have to get into all the nitty gritty of it all. But those are really the two questions that are legally able to ask. And, we train our dogs in a restaurant to go under the table, so that they're not seen or in the way. And so many times when our families have left the restaurant, they hear people say, I didn't know there was a dog in here.
Yes.
That's exactly what we want. You shouldn't know. You shouldn't be distracted by a dog. The dog shouldn't be eating French fries from your plate or your table or on the floor, as tempting as that can be, on the floor. But that's what we try to train our dogs to do. And so that's why not all the dogs make it. I mean, these dogs have to be, really focused, really disciplined. And, some dogs just like, hey, I wanted that French fry, so I went for it.
Or if you like some families, you're going to get that French fry.
No matter what.
Exactly. But in all seriousness, but people can't ask, what's your disability?
Right. Yes. And, it seems like such a harmless question, but, that's very sensitive. You don't want to constantly talk about what your disability
it's personal.
is.
It's very personal.
Exactly. Especially if it's one of those hidden disabilities, like autism, like PTSD, like diabetes, where, you're not walking around with a patch on your arm saying, this is what my concerns are.
Right.
What about registering the dog with the local fire department or the local police department? Whether is that required, or is it just good form to do it so that if there's an emergency, they know what's going on, especially if the dog happens to be at home not wearing the vest?
Right.
That's a really good idea, just to let the fire department and the police department know. But we do ask our families to register, with their county to get the tag and so on. But yeah, that's actually a great idea, because we want that dog then to be able to get into the ambulance if that child has to go to the hospital. I mean, they're an integral part of that child's life and a comfort. Being in an ambulance has got to be scary.
Right.
Yes.
Our dogs are able to go into the hospitals, not in the surgery room, but in the hospital room in recovery to really, help with that transition. Again, just a scary experience for a child. So, not having that dog would be traumatic. I mean, that dog should be able to go everywhere that child does. So that's an excellent point that you brought up.
Now you say to register the dog, are you talking about to register the dog as a service animal, or are you talking about what we normally call as dog licenses around here, where you're basically showing they have their shots and, primarily rabies shots around here?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't get involved on that side of the business, but I do know that our families are told to go ahead and register your dog with the county at the very least. I don't know. I'll have to look into that and ask if they register with, police or fire, or just, stop by and introduce or what have you. But yeah, we just want to make sure that they're registered in their county. Just like every other dog. And I don't know if there's a specific designation that they would say, this is a service dog versus a pet dog. I'm not really 100% certain about that.
I can tell you with Bobo, we put something to the police and the fire department to let them know that if they come in the house and Bobo's not wearing his vest.
Right, but there was nothing official.
There was nothing official, just the way we would normally renew his doggy license every year, where we have to make sure that his rabies shot is up to date.
So this is something above and beyond
exactly.
that. And probably, even if it's not required, would be an important thing to do, just so police and fire are aware, especially if you're riding around town or, at home and something happens, so they are aware that this is a working dog.
And since this show now has reach outside of North Andover, yay! It's probably great to put it out there. Call your local police department, fire department, sheriff's department, whatever that structure happens to be where you live, and see what they want.
Exactly.
Because they might not have thought about it before, because they might not have been in the situation, and they look to it and say, why don't you just tell us about it and go forward at that point.
Exactly. Well,
I think today has been fantastic, because there's just so much about service dogs that people don't know. And you had told me when we first met virtually, you recently serviced a family out of Beverly, was it?
Pardon?
I thought it was out of Beverly you recently serviced a family, provided a dog.
Here in Massachusetts.
Here in Massachusetts.
I mean, we do have several dogs in Massachusetts, yeah. And I was actually trying to convince you to have that family on instead of me. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we encourage everyone to apply if they feel that that their child could benefit from the use of a service dog. The other thing I might encourage everyone to do, if you haven't already seen our episode on Netflix, we're in season 1, episode 1 of Dogs. It's just called Dogs.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
I'm gonna have to check that.
Was that with the young lady who had seizures, right?
Yes.
I did see that. It's an amazing episode.
Is it a documentary? Is it a story?
It is. It's a 1 hour.
It's a documentary, and each episode, really highlights the importance of what dogs, as far as relationships with people and how they support people, whether it's just this is your pet or it's a service dog or something else. I do remember that episode. It was very compelling.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds great.
I didn't realize it was your organization, so I'm going to watch it again. So Kelly, thank you so
Yes.
much for agreeing to be on the show and taking time out of your weekend to participate. I think this has been so informative
Yes.
for us and just for the general public, and also for people who may be in need of a service dog. So thank you so much.
Because it's
Thank
all
you for having
encompassing
me.
as to what we've discussed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
And on behalf of the North Andover Commission on Ability Assistance, thank you again, Kelly, for joining us on Ability Assistance and helping to inform our residents about service animals and 4PawsForAbility. You can reach Kelly by phone at 859-802-0122 or email at kelly@4PawsForAbility. That's 4Paws. 4 to be able to assist ability.org. You can learn more about 4PawsForAbility at www.4pawsforability.org. June will be the last episode of our 2021-2022 season. And we're celebrating,
Hey.
yay, over 25 episodes of Ability Assistance. And our guest will be Dawn Warren, and she is North Andover's town clerk. So I'm really excited to
I am too. We'll be talking about the voting machines. So this month, we are celebrating our current and last year's graduating seniors from the Greater Lawrence Technical High School. We would like to thank all of our volunteer crew from the Greater Lawrence Technical School and Curry College. From the Greater Lawrence Technical School class of 2022, Cassie Buono, John Coffey, Kafori, I always mess that up, sorry John. And also from the Greater Lawrence Technical School class of 2021 and current student at Curry College majoring in communications with a focus on TV and media production, class of 2025, our own Carly Jones. And also from the Greater Lawrence Technical School IT shop, Alan Garcia.
Without these students donating their time on a Saturday morning once a month, we would not be able to bring you the programming that we do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Muzzle tough. We're consistently looking for new topics to explore here at Ability Assistance. And I'm currently looking for guests to invite for our September, October, November, and December shows. Believe it or not, it takes a lot to get those
Yes.
shows filled. We would love to know what topics you would want to know more information about. Is there a specific topic you'd like to learn more about? A specific different type of ability? Please email me at pjones@northandoverma.gov. And in addition to watching through your local cable station, you can watch all of our programming on demand via YouTube. We've got the Cablecast app through Roku and Apple TV, the North Andover Camm's website, and for people who would prefer a podcast, Podbean. You can always get it on Podbean. Until next month.